All right, I haven't done one of these reviews in a while, and I feel like it's a good thing to jump into because I think that you can learn a tremendous amount about socionics really through these kinds of interviews. You get to see real people reacting and responding, and you hear what they say and what they sound like and what their motivations are. Um, so this is very much the applied version of socionics. Uh, so here's Matt, LII type. Um, Very important type too, because a lot of LIIs around here in the community. So you get to kind of hear what they sound like. I think Matt is a very good example of an LII. Um, and we can kind of showcase too at the same time how it doesn't typing people in this manner doesn't have to take an hour or 2 hours or whatever. You can get to a really good conclusion very, very quickly with some people, sometimes in 10 or 15 minutes, depending on the person. Sometimes, yes, a person can be difficult and it will take 2 hours and 3 hours. It depends on the individual and the type. And usually there's other types that are a lot easier to spot. So, nonetheless, it can be done quickly, often happens. So, here, let's just walk through it.
It was my calling in life or something like that.
Mhm.
I don't have anything against the field of engineering. I don't have anything against that type of work in general, but it was more of a decision that like I can kind of frame the rest of my life off of this starting point.
Okay. What do you mean by you can frame the rest of your life off that starting point?
Yeah, so I kind of have this idea that I'll eventually want to go into like academia. Um, and I kind of saw that engineering could be potentially a good like launching point into that. In that I feel that I really do enjoy like kind of the pursuit of like knowledge and kind of understanding new ideas in theory.
Mm.
Um, and that doesn't just necessarily mean engineering, but I kind of have philosophical interests and things like that as well.
Okay, so already you can kind of get a look at the person. You can kind of see certain things, the way they're talking, the way their vibe, whatever. That's all circumstance, right? That's all what's the right word I want to say? It's superficial things, but they do act as clues that you can utilize. So when you add that all in there, now he's talking about engineering, but he would rather do the theory. He'd rather be in academia so he could do theoretical kind of work. Okay. And he's going to talk a lot about this desire to do theory, to speculate, to come up with new solutions to things, to get away from already established protocols. I want to I want to come up with new solutions to problems and things, and um, it has nothing to do with achieving anything or I should say making an impact on the world in some way. It has nothing to do with making any kind of financial or tangible reward of that. No, he just enjoys playing with the abstract theories and concepts, and he goes on about that for quite some time. So this is very, very typical stuff for an alpha NT of some sort. Um, so now you're pretty much just thinking, okay, are you going to be an ILE or an LII? We just have to ask a few more questions to kind of differentiate where the strengths and weaknesses really are. But we can already tell that the NE is going to be highly valued here. Um, yeah. He also goes on about writing a lot and enjoying these archetypical characters, writing and how these things kind of these symbols and archetypes from times of old and very hero's journey kind of things. This is all super NI stuff. So you see that the abstraction is really, really good overall. NE and NI are both really good. He seems to favor the new and coming up with stuff more than the timeless archetypes. You can kind of lean into the idea that NE is far more valued. Okay? I'm moving fast because I don't want to make this like a long video that you could probably just watch the interview directly. Okay, I'm just trying to get you to see what is happening in real time. I think Jack even reached over for that bottle of water and had that moment because he probably already knew what he was dealing with. Right then and there, he's like, yep, alpha NT. And it's only been a minute and 34 seconds in. In fact, if we look at the chat, see how long it takes for people to also start figuring out what he is.
Okay, thank you. And when it comes to mechanical engineering, what do you do? What do you do specifically in it?
Yeah, so right now I'm working for a construction consulting company. Um, it's very mundane work, and that's something that's like kind of a rough thing for me so far. I haven't had a job that's been so mundane until this one. Previously, I've only really worked as a tutor for the college, the university I went to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what aspects of mechanical engineering do you find most interesting?
Well, I can definitely say that I found it more interesting while I was still in school. In that, I when it comes to actually kind of getting the mundane like groundwork done in like kind of the project administration side of things, I found a lot of difficulty kind of adjusting to that, and I'm kind of trying to find ways that I might be able to make a living outside of that going forward because I can't foresee myself kind of like doing this for the rest of my life. Um, but I really love the parts of engineering that involve finding new solutions to problems, kind of
Solutions.
taking the raw materials, the ideas that are already kind of pre-established, and combining those into new solutions going forward.
Okay, thank you. And you talked about the mundane aspect of your.
And I think Jack was already smiling because he probably, again, was like, yep, that's exactly what I expect you to say. Uh, Theorizing a lot of the raw materials and building from there. Okay, so like a lot of TI, we're hearing a lot of NE. You want to create new, see where it can go. Very theoretical space, right? Lots and lots of that over and over again. And he's going to keep bringing it up.
Role, especially for this construction company. So, what do you mean exactly by mundanity? What are the parts of it that are especially mundane to you?
I guess it's just everything is very structured in that everything has kind of a set solution. Like you're not really supposed to deviate from the set boundaries of the given problem. So it's like everything is very sequential, everything is very ordered, and I completely understand the value of that in the field, and it makes sense to me that something would approach that point where it's kind of been tested, it's been understood, and this is kind of how we do it. But that being said, I do hope that in the future I'm kind of someone who maybe can be at the cutting edge of finding a new solution to problems like these. Really, so far, it's a lot of like document work and a lot of making sure I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and kind of follow
Cutting edge, new. I want to be in the new theoretical side. And this is very, very common for very high intuitive types to see the day-to-day things getting done as mundane, to use those exact words in many cases, or some synonym to that where they just find it boring and uninteresting and just like, ugh, it's tedious, right? So it's a desire really for the new. What other possibilities can we get into? So very, very any stuff. So already, I mean, you really got it down pretty much to two likely types. Just got to get to those questions to kind of see what's at the bottom. What are you really bad at?
following procedures, even performing calculations. Everything is very procedural. Everything is very, you do this and then you do that and then you do that and then you get your correct answer.
I see. Fair enough. So, what I'd like to talk about then is this more theoretical side. So, you want to go on perhaps back towards a more academic approach, more theoretical approach. What will that look like? What are the kinds of problems you would like to be solving?
So
Yeah,
common for NT alphas to like doing academia as a professor or researcher or something like that. Very common. You can see it in many interviews. Many of them really enjoy that kind of stuff.
I think I like I really found that before I went into engineering, I was always kind of okay, like decent at math and decent at science and things like that. Those were kind of not necessarily natural strengths for me, actually. They were more things I had to build up to, and I think I'm kind of seeing that these like very like structural like step by step approaches maybe are something that is not really like something that comes easy to me naturally. I was somebody who in school I always did pretty well in school, but I never really kind of went by the approaches that teachers would give. I always found myself trying to kind of like do my own thing, and I that took the form of as a kid I really loved creating my own stories and creating different things that um, different kind of fantasy worlds and different things like that
More
um,
abstraction.
that allowed me to kind of explore my mind, explore the possibilities of what could be created. And I actually found that I I found that you could kind of have something like that within the structural framework of mathematics or engineering or science, but it takes a different form. And you kind of have to have that discipline, that structure, in order to achieve in that kind of a field. And so back to the kind of the engineering point of that question, um, I think I like the idea of kind of taking those structural frameworks, those raw materials, and kind of finding new ways that we can kind of
Oh boy.
For generations,
So,
Bridgestone has made tires. Today, we're still tirelessly at work, doing our part to help
zeroing on
ensure
the
the journey is
aspect already. Lots of abstraction going on.
understand the physical universe, kind of new ways
Understand the physical
kind
universe.
of modeling the physical universe. And I find a lot of interest in
Making
computational
models
fluid
out of the
dynamics,
physical
for
universe.
example, which it's pretty interesting stuff that I wasn't really exposed to until my senior design project at my university.
Oh, yeah, just to make the point. Look at that. 6 minutes, 56 seconds, less than 7 minutes. I'm pretty damn sure that Jack already knew more or less what he was dealing with. I was already writing in their alpha NT in about 7 minutes. Like with many people, you can get it pretty fast. And I'm
Which
sure other people watching probably also had it too.
was the goal was to kind of create a mechanical fish that could kind of swim and move underwater in the same manner as a fish. So
Mhm.
I found that pretty interesting. I enjoyed that a lot.
All right. So, in the interest of just kind of moving it along, he talks a lot about his writing and the things he's interested in, which is a lot more abstraction, writing, creating characters, and things like that. But he mentions he's not very good at the character building side. The writing of the characters is kind of a struggle, which usually in EII from Delta, that's their strength, not the weakness. So it's a good way of ruling EII out as less likely. So let's kind of move it up just to kind of see where the weaknesses lie socially and try to figure out which kind of alpha T we've got going on here.
Member of a group or a leader of a group, that kind of thing. It was hard for me to kind of like get my first job out of college, for example. Kind of learning those skills and how to like interview and kind of interact with people in a professional manner, but still be kind of personable. It was kind of like a learning curve for me in a lot of ways.
Okay. Thank you.
So as catching up, he was mentioning really struggling with the SE, really struggling to assert himself in a leadership position or anything like that. And really struggling to assert himself, to make friends with people, to talk to people, to go up to people. But he showed that he very much likes it. He wants to. So it shows that the FE is valued, but very weak. You can see again the comments that have been happening. I already put him as an alpha NT. Somebody here already at LII. You know, they're wondering, so they're looking at an introverted NT type. You know, LII. You know, lots of people already kind of spotting that. clearly suggestive FE. It was very noticeable. Again, all within like about 15 minutes. Now this is under 20 minutes. Can be done quickly. That's not to say that Matt is, I don't know, just like a textbook or something, but it's just that in many cases you can get quick enough that you can start typing people pretty fast.
For sharing that. I think there's that. I guess there's a question there in terms of, is the difficulty more to do with going out, making an impact, drawing attention to yourself and making those friends? Or is it more about maintaining those friends and keeping things, the sort of the day-to-day details of your life together?
It's a good question. I think it's probably more about making friends and kind of like going out and like putting myself out there and making that connection. I think I'm fairly good at kind of being like someone who can like kind of keep his friends and kind of like be close to people like after establishing that connection. But I think I do struggle more with like reaching out and kind of taking that first step, that initiative. It is something that I have to kind of like think about and I have to kind of actively work on.
Thank you. So you said that you.
So very important right there. Going out, meeting the people, getting yourself involved, getting yourself to engage us. That's the hard part. That's what's tough. So the FE and the SE, really bad. Really bad stuff. But once he's got those people, once he has the connections and dealing with the day-to-day, that part is not so bad. That part he can kind of handle it. So the FI is not terrible. SI is not so bad either, probably. So, okay, we're doing well there, but we're bad with the FE, very FE suggestive. And he shows more of how he really admires that with other people who can do it, people who are probably his dual ESEs. This really separates him from the ILE that would not have these kinds of issues, kind of, at least not at this age, at this stage. Your ILEs are far more likely to throw themselves out there and be sociable and friendly and talkative to a lot of people. That's usually not their problem. Their problem is maintaining those relationships.
You sometimes have kind of trouble with asserting yourself. How do you handle situations of conflict with other people?
Typically, if I can avoid it, I probably won't say anything. That's typically my response. I typically won't try to like, if I could, for example, if I have like a problem at work, it was a bit of a struggle to kind of like get past that desire to just kind of try to figure it out by myself without like going up to the guy above me or anything like that. And so I learned that you really have to just kind of bite the bullet, and things are a lot more painless if you just kind of go ahead and do it.
Right.
All right.
Again, SE and FE are still
Thank you.
not good.
Let me see what else I can ask you.
That wasn't
I know.
particularly decisive enough.
So, what qualities do you admire in others that you do not have for yourself?
Juicy.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I really admire people who are very like outgoing and very like able to kind of like invite people in. And one of my best friends in college was kind of like that, like very 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 good with people, very good with reaching out, like checking on people, making sure that I never kind of like went into my shell too much, into my bubble, kind of like retreated from the world.
So you very much like
I
FE.
definitely admire that a lot. I also admire, I guess,
I was like, you're dual, but
just trying to think about that. I do admire people who have that kind of drive to be good at like physical things, like athletes and people like that. The idea of kind of someone who is assertive and can take action rather than someone like me who has a little bit more of a of trouble with like assertiveness and
Mm.
putting themselves out there. It's
Well,
definitely
the
like more
SE.
extroverted qualities, stereotypically extroverted qualities.
Mhm.
Um,
Sounded like an ESE. And of course, we got to get Publix, right? So, sounded an awful lot like an ESE that would be very good at asserting themselves and also very good. Oh, goodness. And very good at the FE, checking in on,
so another question would be,
asserting themselves to check in on people.
where do you see yourself in?
He's going to go into that. Again, if you had listened up to this point, you would have heard him talking a lot about archetypes, about symbolism, about hero's journey. These things that really last the test of time. Um, hero with 1,000 faces, sort of constructs, these archetypes, right? They're timeless, telling the tales over and over again, in a sense. Very NI stuff. So you see, he's very good at NE and NI, but it sounds like he enjoys the NE, the exploring of stuff, a lot more than he does the NI. The NI just is there, and he does it easily. So it makes sense that NI would be in a demonstrative position. Excellent use of both abstractions, so NE in the creative and valued position. There's a lot of logic and structure that he uses. He likes the theory. He wants to do a lot of the theoretical diving into stuff. So it's like, okay, very TI-ish. He's aware of the practical importance of certain things, like a TE, but he doesn't really care about it. He doesn't really like it. So kind of pushes it off to the side. All right. And we got to the things that he's bad at. The FE. Very bad at it, but he really wants to be good at it. He likes it. He appreciates it in others. So FE suggestive. Excellent. That's there on the bottom. He's not so bad at the day-to-day taking care of things. So, all right, we can throw SIs, mobilized. It's in there. All right, no problem. All right, FI was not terrible, but he doesn't seem to make a big deal out of it either. Seemed like FE is far more value, but he's very bad at it and kind of seeks it out in others. Really is admires it in others. So put it all together, and that looks like an LII. Certainly, you could tell very quickly you're dealing with an alpha NT, sort of almost naive, childlike desire to explore the world, but explore mentally, explore through ideas and theories and concepts rather than physically journeying the world, physically wandering around on foot and driving around and sailing a boat and traveling place to place in a sensory, physical way. Um, and he's already mentioned how he's kind of terrible at sensory stuff too. So, again, one last time to just point it out, you can see it many different people, LII, alpha and T's, people spotting that very, very quickly. So once you get good at understanding the Socionics model, you can very quickly start typing people fast within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, right? Of course, it depends on the person. There are some types that are notoriously difficult because they're notoriously inconsistent in their answers. They're all over the place. And those types, yes, can take a long time. There's other issues that can take a long time. But my point here is that there are also many types and many situations where you can type people very fast. You can get good at it. So LII wanted to show one. Matt, shout out to you. Um, seems like a good guy, good dude here, and makes a good example of LII for people to get to see what they look like. Many LII sound like this. Very theoretical, enjoying academia, things like that. Even Jack over here, who's an ILE, but still an alpha NT, is also more of that academic, professorial kind of person. It's just very, very common for alpha NTs. So anyway, hopefully this helps kind of break some of this down. You learn about the particular type. You learn kind of how typing is happening live, and you're seeing what you're looking for live. Um, yeah, that's what I got. So let me know if you got any questions, comments, so on.